Hello, I am Ravi Atle. My co-host Rajani Zogrekar and I are pleased to bring to you the first episode of the Living History Project. This episode, we will focus on the lives of Indian women as it evolved during the 20th century.
Hello,
Rajni?
I am Rajani Zogrekar. It is my great pleasure and distinct honor to introduce Dr. Prabhakar Tamboli. He is a world-renowned agriculturist and an academician. We are fortunate to have Dr. Tamboli as our guest for this inaugural episode of Living History. Namaskar, Prabhu Bhaiya.
Namaskar.
Could you tell us about your early years of life? Where and when were you born?
Yes. First, let me thank both of you for giving me this opportunity to be the first in your project. I am probably the senior most in our Marathi Kalamandal group. I don't know about others, but it's an honor and privilege to be a part of your project, which is very innovative and which is designed to educate younger generation born after 2005. Because they take things for granted. They think that iPad and TV existed. So that's a different generation. But anyway, I am thankful to you. Regarding my early life, I was born in Gwalior, a capital city of Sindhya Maharaja's government at that time. And I was born in a middle class family, lower middle class, I will call it, because we did not have good roof on our head. We didn't have electricity. We didn't have running water and all kind of what you call as living conditions which are below poverty line. But nevertheless, we are very happy the way we were. And during those days, um our family circumstances were such that we were tied up with our own family and we didn't have much time to go out or to socialize or to do other activities.
So, what year was it?
I was born in 1928, December 1928.
Okay.
So, how many siblings did you have, Prabhu Bhaiya?
Pardon?
How many brothers and sisters did you have?
How many?
Brothers and sisters.
Oh, I had quite a few brothers and sisters who lived less than 1 year, less than 3 months. But the surviving were one brother and three sisters. And later on, the other brother and the sister also passed away. So now we were only three until 2 years ago when my other sister also passed away. So now we are only two of us, me and my sister in New York.
So she's a younger sister or she's your older sister?
No, elder, younger.
Younger, okay.
Yeah.
And
I had two elder brothers who passed away at the age of 8 or 12. And I had one more younger sister. She also passed away. And then two younger sister. One is Gulab, which is in New York. She's in New York. And the one was in also in Gwalior, but she passed away a couple of years ago.
And in terms of your neighborhood, what were the families, what were their livelihood?
My grandfather was working for one of the Sardars in Gwalior as an accountant or a property caretaker. And his salary in those days, I don't recall, but maybe not more than 3 or 4 rupees per month. And the only source of our income started when my father had a job. When he finished his high school and had a accounting degree from Bombay, he came and he was joined as a accountant also in the Gwalior pottery. And from there we started getting some income. But we were at that time almost about 8 or 9 members in the family, because there were three grand aunts living with me. My aunt, father's sister, who was widowed early, and her daughter, and my sister. So, in all, we were 8 or 9 members in the family with a very, very limited income. Very difficult to make both ends meet.
So going to school was out of question?
No, going to school was easy because schooling was free.
Okay.
Only problem was distance. It was about 3 miles from my house. So I used to walk both ways without chappals, without shoes, and in the heat of 112, 114 degrees temperature. But I enjoyed my schooling. It was a Marathi school. The teachers were very good, and I learned a lot in that school. And I am grateful to Maharaja Sindhya at that time starting middle school, which was free. So because I was a good student, I got admission in high school where the tuition fee was 3 rupees. So I used to bike. At that time, I had a second-hand bike. So I used to bike to the school and got my high school degree in 2 years. Then the college degree was another landmark because it was 8 rupees was the fees for 4 years tuition. But that also after 2 years was difficult to pay because my father was lost his job because the Maharaja lost his kingdom, the privy purse, and therefore he was not providing any pension, any gratuity, any fund to his employees. So I was working part time and joining the college. First 2 years, my father was able to pay 8 rupees, but next 2 years of the college was part-time job and part-time college.
So
So
how
that's,
about your sisters? Did they go to school?
yeah, they also, because in those days, schooling, high school, up to high school almost was free. So going to school was not a problem. In fact, they were, I must say, very good school, very good teachers, very well paid teachers by the Sindhya, and very good atmosphere in the school, very academic atmosphere.
So what subjects did you learn? English, mathematics, history, what else?
Sorry, I lost the words.
What subjects did you learn in the class?
Okay. I was studying science biology because I wanted to go to medical school. And that was the first medical college started in Gwalior in 1950. So I applied for it and I was admitted. But then again, the finances being the major problem, I could not continue and I had to drop from medical college and start doing part-time job and trying to find a scholarship where I can get my master's degree. And fortunately, I got scholarship for my master's degree, Madhya Bharat government scholarship at IRI New Delhi. And that's how I entered into agriculture. Otherwise, agriculture was not my chosen subject.
Prabhu Kakat, we are sharing this photograph of you from your childhood. Can you
Yeah,
tell us the story behind that photograph, please?
Yeah, it's very interesting because in Gwalior, every year in the month of December, they used to have a mela. Lot of shops from all over India used to come and demonstrate, and there was a big sale. So during that mela, my father took me to that mela, and one of my father's friend was a photographer, professional photographer. So he liked my dress and my jerry topi with the red jerry work done. And I had earring which cannot see now, but I was wearing. So he took me to his studio and took my picture and sent it to a competition in a journal photo competition in Germany. And he got the first award on that one. So that's how I preserved this picture. I have many other pictures of my childhood, but I lost them during the transit.
So do you
Okay.
have any family pictures?
That is the only one because we could not afford camera. We could not have bought films. We could not develop them. So one picture, family picture, which I sent you, is taken professionally by a professional photographer.
So here is the family picture.
Yeah, I can tell you who's who there.
Okay.
Standing is me. Next to me is my brother-in-law, younger sister's husband, Mr. Kotbage. He was a veterinary doctor. Next person is Digambar Boraskar, who was in United Nations. And next baby crying is my sister's baby. And the sister is in New York currently. Sitting is my wife, Suman. Then next is the Kamal, my sister, married to Kotbage. The middle lady is my mother. And next is my father. On the lap of my father is son of my sister, Ashwin Boraskar. Sitting is Dilip, the son of Kodbage, my sister's son, then Aslesha and Satish, my son.
Wonderful.
Nice
And
picture.
what year was this?
This was probably 60, uh, yeah, maybe 60, 61.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay.
uh,
Wonderful, wonderful photograph. Okay. Uh, Prabhu Kaka, between your grandmother and
yeah,
your granddaughter,
yeah,
the women in your life span about 100 years
right,
of profound and rapid transformations
yeah,
in the lives and circumstances of
yeah,
women in India.
yeah, yeah,
You have been a keen witness and an active participant
yeah.
in this process through their eyes and their lives. So I request you to take us down the memory lane
Okay.
and make that century come alive for us and our audience. So let's begin with your grandmother. Uh, when was she born?
I have no idea because in those days they never kept any record. Even after my birth, when I was applying for citizenship here, they wanted
Mhm.
my date of birth, and I said I don't have certificate. So I have no idea, but I only thing I remember is that she was widowed when she was about 15 or 16, and she had
Oh,
two daughters.
mhm,
One was my mother and one my maushi.
mhm,
And she has some very meager source of income from one of the temples where her husband used to do some seva or puja, and they used to give him in those days something like 4 or 5 rupees a month or something.
mhm,
So she was living by herself,
mhm,
and she was highly respected in her society because she had somehow learned the art of Nadi Pariksha. She
mm,
could examine the nerve, nadi, and tell pulse, and she could
mm,
tell what kind of sickness it is. I'll come to that little later, but in the meantime, I want to take few seconds to describe what was the life of a widow in those days, what I call really dark days,
mm,
because it was 1890 to 1910 or something. During that period, I think the system of sati burning was abolished by the British government. Otherwise, my Aji would have been also been burned, but she survived. But in those days, widowed women were considered very unauspicious. They were not allowed to participate in any social gathering. They were not allowed to wear any colored clothes other than red 9-yard sari. They were supposed to shave their head. They're not supposed to keep their head open and keep the hair on the head. Then they were not allowed to wear any jewelry. They were not allowed to use bindi. They were not allowed to remarry. Worst part was they were not allowed to let go to their mothers and their parents. Although widowed, they had to live in the house of their husband. So it was a very miserable life. Only place they could go was the temple to listen to kirtan or to bhajans. And as a elderly mother in the house, she was a great help to both of my mother and my aunt, because they were delivering children every other day
mm,
and they
mm,
needed help in the
mm,
kitchen. And so my grandmother used to get up at 4 or 5 in the morning, go to my Maushi's house, cook meals for her, come to my house, which was about 4 miles. She was walking those mud and all that. But that is how she was leading her life. Unfortunately, in the last days of her life, she was blinded and she was staying with us, and we all of us took care of her, and we deeply loved her.
So, what year did she pass away?
She passed away in 55, 56 something.
Oh,
She must be around 80, 85 by
okay,
the time she passed away.
okay. So, what what is your earliest memory of your
Yeah,
grandmother?
yeah, that is what I am telling, that we used to get all kinds of diseases like typhoid, malaria, you name it. So whenever we got fever, my mother used to wait till my grandmother comes. Then she will look into
Mm,
my pulse.
mm,
And just by examining the pulse, she would say how many days typhoid I have, whether
mm,
it is 20 days or 40 days or what. And she would prescribe only lentils soup water for 45 days.
Wow.
And that is my first memory, because uh, I'm sure she must be coming early for delivering other babies, because all the
yes.
deliveries were held in the house. So
Mm,
my first memory was her diagnosing my diagnosis. I have 45 days
yes.
typhoid.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, one of the things
Yeah,
is you painted a picture of the
yeah,
widows in
yeah,
that time.
yeah,
And I suspect all these things like shaving the head and forcing them to wear this
yeah,
kind of plain clothes
yeah.
was basically to make them as unattractive as
Correct,
possible
correct, correct.
for men.
That was the idea, that they become least attractive and don't interact with social people.
Yes, yes. But from what you described,
Yeah,
within your family, at
yeah,
least, she had a place of love and respect. Am
Absolutely,
I correct?
absolutely. Because along with her,
Hmm,
there were two grand aunts of my father's aunt,
hmm,
two of them,
hmm,
almost the same age group,
hmm.
almost the same age group of getting widowed. They
Oh,
did not have children, but they were living with my father because my father kind of gave them
hmm.
support and shelter because there had no place to go to.
Yes.
You see, in those days, in early 1900, because of the plague, because of the mortality rate was very, very high.
Yes.
Can you see my eye? I don't know. I got some screen.
Yes. No, I think it's okay. The connection, it seems to be occasionally it seems to drop, but everything is
Okay,
working well.
okay,
We
okay,
can see you.
okay.
Yeah. Uh, what was the biggest influence that she had in your life, if
Well,
you can?
she taught me the biggest thing was social service, how to
Mm,
be useful to the community. She had the knowledge of this Vediki. You know, in her
mm,
house, in the morning, 4 o'clock, there was a line of 20, 25 people in line to come to
mm,
see her because she used to
mm,
say some mantras on the
mm,
different kinds of diseases, and they used to get cured and they had faith in her. Then another thing that I learned from her was continuously helping the family members at the risk of her own health. She would never care about
mm,
her health, but she will come and help her two daughters, their children, their grandchildren. And these are the two things which impacted me very well. She never complained that she is widowed early or she has no place to go to or no
mm,
cinema to go to or something.
mm,
She never complained. And that is
mm.
something which I am trying to follow today also because I have so many complaints, but I don't complain. I just keep it to myself.
Yes. Another impression that I get is
Yeah,
that even though at large the widows' places in the society was
yeah,
very low, but
yeah,
because of her special skills and because of her attitude,
right.
she made a place for herself in the
Correct,
society.
correct, correct. She had a different kind of
That is
place.
extremely remarkable.
People
Yes.
people looked at her as a ideal person because of her social.
Mm.
She never charged anybody even single rupee, and
Ah.
she was still helping a lot of poor people in her own ways.
Mm.
So that was remarkable.
That is
Yeah,
indeed. Now, let's talk about your mother,
right,
who we are lucky to see her photograph,
right, right.
so we know how she looked.
Yeah, yeah.
So again, similar questions. Do you know when she was born?
Yeah, she was born in Gwalior.
And
And she must have been born because she died at 76, maybe 1902 or 3 or 4, something like that. She
okay,
passed away when she was
okay,
71. Uh,
okay.
yeah, but she was born in Gwalior. And in those days,
Mhm.
early marriages. So she was married when she
Yes.
was 8 year old. She was half asleep when the marriage was taking
Oh.
place. Because my grandfather, lost his wife, my paternal grandmother, very early. So he
Mm,
wanted some lady in the
mm,
house to help
mm.
cooking. And so he forced my father. My father never wanted to marry that early. But in those days, the children were obedient. They could not
Mm.
be disobedient to their parents. So he agreed to his father's request and got married. And that time my mother was 8 year old.
How old was your father then?
Father was 10-year difference.
Oh,
My father was 18-year-old.
so he had barely finished high school or college, huh?
Yeah, he didn't go to college. He had accounting degree from Bombay.
Mm.
It's amazing. You know how we lived in Bombay? There was one Marathi society which used to help poor Brahmin students. He had no money to go to school, so he went to that what we call ashram, and there
Yes.
the rule was to get up at 4 o'clock, shave your head, and do sandhya, and then go to the college. Before that, you cannot go.
Hmm.
But somehow he stayed there for
Hmm.
1 year and few months, got his high school degree,
Hmm.
accounting degree, and he had a very good job with Wheeler Company.
Hmm.
But my grandfather insisted that he should come and stay in Gwalior and work in Gwalior. So there again, he has to obey his father. He resigned his job from the good company. I mean, our future would have been completely different if he was in Bombay. But anyway, he came back to
Hmm.
Gwalior and he started serving Maharaja Gwalior in their pottery first, and later on joined the Grand Hotel.
So just like I asked about your grandmother,
Yeah,
what is your earliest memory of your mother?
yeah. Well, that is also very vivid because I don't recall the first interaction with her than the one when she used to clean my butts after my first morning motion. But as far as I remember, she used to make very good food for us, whatever limited resources we have. And then I used to help her in doing the dishes, in washing clothes, in bringing water from the well, and taking her to her mother. So whatever help I could give her, I was I was giving her. But I don't have very clear first memory of her interaction, but all my life I had most loving mother in my life. Of course, all mothers are loving, but she was special because my two elder brothers, two sisters, and so many siblings passed away. So I was very dear to the both of them. I was the only surviving son, and for me, it was very tight bond. Whatever they would say, I will do even without thinking twice. And they knew that
Yeah.
I am for them and they are for me.
So, Prabhu Bhaiya, the
Yes.
housework that you
It's
were doing,
interesting.
Yeah.
sorry, the
Go
housework
ahead,
that you
Rajni.
were doing,
Go ahead.
the housework that you were doing was doing on your own, or somebody, your mother would say, can you help me, or can you do this, or can you fetch
No, no,
water?
no. I was doing on my own because I could see her plight
Okay.
because she has to do, she was serving food for two grand aunts, my grandfather, and the rule was that she has to cook for them without drinking water, without eating anything.
Oh,
Oh,
So I was stealing and quietly giving her water without making sure that my grandfather, who was sitting inside doing God's prayers, that they don't see. Oh, but she was, I mean, in those days, listening to the elderly was the rule. Nobody will ever think of disobeying or doing something which their grandparents or parents don't allow.
yes. Yes. And I can imagine with her being
Yeah,
pregnant so frequently,
yeah,
the modern concept of bonding with your mother and all that, there simply was no time
Correct,
for
correct.
anything like that. And so the bonding that you described
Yeah.
is so touching and so moving
No,
that,
the worst thing that happened was that as a result of her poor immunity, she developed pyorrhea, the
Oh,
tooth
oh,
problem in the tooth. So as a result, she could not even walk. She
wow.
used to walk on the ground, like sitting in a sitting
mm,
position, and
mm,
it took almost 3 years
mm,
for her to get the diagnosis done. What was the problem?
mm,
And then after all her teeth
mm,
were removed and the new teeth were put in, she came back to the life. So those were the days when I used
mm,
to even give her bath because she could not go and get water
mm.
from outside. So no, I have very fond memories of uh, being with her and doing things for her.
So did you have electricity in the
So
house or you
you
had,
mentioned,
sorry,
no, go ahead.
no,
Sorry.
did you have electricity in the house or you had like rocket lamps and
Sorry, I didn't get the question.
did you have electricity in the house or you had
No, no,
rocket
no, no, no.
lamps?
We got electricity after I was almost 20-year old, after my
Oh,
high school.
Oh,
And when I was in the
mm,
first year or second year, maybe 17, 18-year old, all my high school studies, college studies, I did under the municipal lamp or the kerosene lamp in the house.
oh. So just like you mentioned about your grandmother,
Yeah,
that the biggest influence that she had on you was helping others.
right.
So, from your mother, what do you think is the biggest influence she had on you?
I mean, it's more or less similar because
Mm,
she told me one thing, and which I will never forget, that whatever comes in your life, take it as a blessing from God.
mm,
Because when
mm,
she lost her so many children,
mm,
out of 12, only three survived. She had a shock of her life, but she never complained. Then, when my aunt, my father's sister, was widowed also early, and she has no place to go to, she insisted, my mother insisted, that we should keep her in our house. So that was a element
mm.
of sacrifice again, and sharing the poverty and sharing whatever we have within the family rather than let the family member suffer. I remember the dialogue between my father and my mother when the question of my aunt's coming was being discussed. And my mother put her foot down. She did not allow my father to take any other decision. She said, "You just bring her and we will stay together."
Oh,
So that was, I mean, poverty teaches you a lot of lessons. The more poor you are, the bigger heart you have, bigger compassion you have, bigger understanding of people's of other problems have. And that is something which has touched my heart all my life. And therefore, all my life, my
yes.
goal was to get out of poverty, to get something financially secured and improve the quality of life. And I am so happy that in the last few years of my parents, I was able to provide them with all the comforts they could think of and three or four servants to help them. And something which very happy about. I'm little unhappy that I could not be with them in the last days because I was in the middle of my job. My children were studying here. I begged of them to come to USA, but they refused. They said they are happy there. So I've made all possible arrangement for them to stay comfortably. They have cook, they have driver, they have everything in their house. So I
That's
was very
wonderful.
happy.
So Prabhu Bhaiya, when
So,
you're
Rajni, you want to take
yeah,
over?
yeah. Last question. Prabhu Bhaiya, when you're growing up, were you able to
You
go
want
to
to take
Baba's
over
house,
from.
Azoba's house on the mother's side?
No, father's house, father's side. Mother did not have any house.
Oh, okay.
My grandmother was living in a rented place, and my father later on built the house in when I was in the second year or third year because he got some money from his job, good enough to build a roof over our head. And that was the year because we were living in a temporary kacha house with wooden temporary walls. But after some time, my father was able to build a house. So we stayed in my father's house.
Okay, so can we talk about your wife now?
Yeah,
Now that you have finished college, now you're earning.
yeah,
Did your parents talk about you getting married?
yeah.
And what were their expectations of you?
My father's expectation, or
Yeah, your father's expectations about you getting married to.
no, my father told me one thing: you do whatever you like, I will never interfere in your life.
Really?
Because his life he thought was ruined by
Hmm,
his father
hmm,
by bringing him from
hmm,
Bombay to here, by
Mm.
marrying when he was not ready to marry.
hmm,
So he had a determination. He gave me a blank check.
hmm.
He says, Prabhakar, you do whatever you like in your life. I will never say don't do it. So I had a blank check and I knew my responsibility that I have to somehow get over this poverty business and put my family on a good footing.
So when did you think of getting married or looking for a girl?
No, no, it was divine intervention. I never wanted to marry initially because I have seen the perils of married life of my mother and my aunt, and I thought married life is miserable. So I didn't want to marry. But it so happened that I saw Suman in one of the musical concerts, and I had my own passion for classical music. And I was attending school for music part time in the evening. But I had to discontinue because it was interfering with my studies. So when I saw Suman accompanying Hirabai Badodekar, the top artist in
Yes.
Gwalior,
Mm.
I said, this is the girl I would like to marry. But I didn't know her even name. And the coincidence was within 3 days after I saw her, I met her in her house because
Hmm,
my sister's marriage was organized in her house because our house was very small and we could not have organized any dinner or anything. So my father and Suman's father were friends. I did not know that.
Mm.
And my father went to Suman's father and said, for 3 days, we want to take your house. He says, just gladly take it. He has a huge house. So I was the brother in charge of the marriage of my sister. So I got opportunity to meet Suman, and then that was love at first sight, and rest is all history. So
So,
it was coincidence, and then chemistry took over. I changed my mind, and I decided to marry.
so this how long was the span between you?
Oh, it was 4 years.
Oh, really?
because yeah,
Oh,
because when I met her,
uh-huh.
it was I was in the second year. I just finished second year of the college.
Mm.
I had to go for 2 more years for undergraduate and 2 more for graduate. So for 4 years, out of which 2 years were in Delhi, New Delhi, we used to have only correspondence. And when I was in Gwalior, those first 2 years, we used to meet as a family get together. There was no private dating or no private meeting. So I used to find some excuse to go to her house, and she will find some excuse to come to my house, and we will have some family meeting. And we knew that we are going to marry, but we didn't know how it is going to turn, because I didn't have degree, I didn't have job. Her father wanted to marry her as soon as possible, so she had to couple of times refuse the boys who came to see her, because she wanted to wait till I finished my degree. But that romance went on very quietly and very silently, although everybody knew that we are having romance, like cat drinking milk, closing her eyes. We thought nobody knows, but by our body action and reaction, they knew what is going on. So once I finished my degree in Delhi, I came back, and immediately, even before I finished my degree, I had a job, because I had a scholarship from the government and they were obliged to give me job. So I joined as a lecturer second day of my finishing my degree.
Mm.
And I had a gazetted officer job of 150 rupees in those days.
Wow.
And I was in the seventh heaven. I said, I'm ready to marry now. So her father knew what was going on. Sue approached my father, and it was very happy marriage, happy families. Both the families were happy with this alliance. And I must say that 16, 17 years that we lived together with my mother and Suman was fantastic. There was not a single incident where there was any conflict between Suman and my mother.
So was the wedding
Oh,
elaborate,
wonderful.
or it was just a 4, 5 hours wedding?
Pardon?
Your wedding was elaborate, like for
No,
two,
no,
three
no.
days?
It was relatively simple.
Okay.
Relatively simple, but in those days you had to invite all the relatives and the friends and local people whose houses you have been to attend the wedding parties. So you have to return the reciprocate the
Favor.
hospitality. But it
Yeah.
was not a big function. Maybe 100, people for
Okay.
dinner.
Oh, even then, that's a lot big.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So when did you decide to do studies abroad? What was the trigger?
That was the day one, because as soon as I finished my master's degree, I had a bond with the government for 5 years to serve them. So I was waiting for that bond to finish so that I can go for my PhD. So
Uh,
as before I finished my fifth year, I was applying for a PhD admission to different colleges, including Rockefeller Foundation. And I was admitted in IRI New Delhi for PhD, and but I was not getting any scholarship. So I had saving of 800 rupees in those days. So I said, okay, I will go and start and try for some scholarship or something. But in the meantime, I was lucky to get Rockefeller Fellowship. And they said that we will give you $500 scholarship. It was all India selection.
mm,
Out of 300 candidates, only three or four were selected. So I was lucky. So I got scholarship. So I get to study, earn and learn. I was able to send money from from Iowa State to my parents to take care of them, and I could take care of my family. So I was very fortunate. Again, God's blessings. and on a divine intervention to get my dream fulfilled. So I got my PhD degree and I got my funding to do both studies and take care of the family.
So by then you had two children.
Yeah. Actually, when I joined my PhD,
Uh-huh.
I already had two children.
Oh.
Because in those days also, although family planning was a little bit advanced, but I couldn't make it. I didn't want to have children that early, but somehow I got them. But now I am lucky that they are taking care of me.
So how many years did you live in the US?
2.5 years.
Only?
Yeah, I finished my PhD in record time in the
Wow.
whole history of Iowa State. Nobody has finished this PhD because what I did was I worked in India on some important problems of soils.
Okay.
So I took my PhD thesis based on that experience.
Mm.
And I used to work 18 hours in Iowa
Hmm.
and finish my PhD work side by side when I was doing the coursework. So I was very lucky. My professor used to
Hmm.
laugh when I said I want to finish in 2 years because I don't have leave. I leave of absence for 2 years. He
Oh.
says nobody has done it in 2 years, but I was lucky to do it.
So staying back in the US was not an option. You
No,
had.
it was a great option because even before I finished my PhD, they were willing to give me a job and
Hmm.
they were paying enough money for me to repay if the government wants me to repay.
Mm.
But I decided and someone decided to come back to India because our both parents were there and my daughter was also in India. I did not take her. I took only my son because I had to study. So I thought I didn't have time to take care of the two children and wife.
So she
So
stayed with the grandparents?
yeah, she stayed. Aslesha stayed with my parents.
Oh, really? Okay. So she was what, 7, 8 years old?
Yeah. Maybe 5 years,
Oh,
5 to
really?
6 year
Wow.
old. Yeah.
So did she ever say anything about it? Why did you leave me back and you went?
Well, not really. She didn't complain.
Okay.
She was happy with her. She was
Aji.
pampered. She was pampered by both grandmothers,
Okay.
so she was quite happy. And it was a 2 year period, so 2.5 years. So it passed
Hmm.
away very quickly.
So what was your role raising the children?
Zero. Because after I finished my PhD, during PhD, after the job, my travel, all India travel was so overwhelming that I had no chance, no time to take care of children. All the decisions about their schooling and everything was done by Suman. The most important decision was when I went to Kabul, I took both my children there.
Mhm.
But there was only one high school, which was international, American international school. And their teaching and the standard of teaching was very poor.
Hmm.
So Suman decided to send them back to India
Hmm.
and in Sindhya school. So Satish
Hmm.
went to Sindhya school and Aslesha went to girls school of Sindhya school.
Hmm.
And both of them finished their what they call English degree. There was a name for that,
Senior Cambridge?
senior Cambridge.
Okay.
Both of them
Hmm.
passed senior Cambridge from Gwalior.
Okay.
Hmm.
So now let's talk about Ashlesha.
Yeah,
When was she born and where was she educated? You told a minute ago that she basically lived back home in India.
yeah.
So when was she?
She was born in 1954, and then she went to high school in Jabalpur when I was posted in Jabalpur after coming back from America.
Okay.
I was head of the department and assistant dean of the college there. So after finishing high school, she applied for admission to Bombay Sophia College.
Oh,
She got admission in Sophia
Hmm.
College, and she was in the dorm in the Sophia College.
really?
And Satish got admission in the Pilani Engineering College. He was also IIT, selected for IIT,
Hmm.
but he didn't get the subject of his choice. So he went to Pilani College.
Hmm.
So by that time, I was in Jabalpur when they were studying both in Bombay and in Pilani.
So, what made you go to Kabul? What was the
Well, Kabul was an opportunity for me to get into international organization. When I was doing my work in Jabalpur, I was invited by International Forum, FAO, for some presentation for an international seminar
mm,
in Russia. So I went there and I presented the paper. So FAO, United Nations, offered me a job. So I thought this was a good opportunity because I also held some problem of political interference in the education system. It's a different story. I can write a book on that. So I decided
Hmm.
I didn't want to leave India. I was very happy with my job. But two things. One was the political interference. Number two, my dream was to get my children the best education. And because I studied in USA, I somehow wanted them to get education in USA. But at that time, I did not know that I will come to USA. My future in Kabul was hanging in the all the years, very, very uncertain because all the appointments were done at 6 months extension. And
mm,
I never knew where I'm going to go next. But again, divine intervention, and I got a job in the World Bank, and
So when
that's how I came to America. I wanted to remove poverty in the developing countries. I didn't do much on that, but I got out of my poverty.
so
yes.
what years were you in Kabul?
67 to 73.
Okay.
So, this was post Green Revolution.
No, Green Revolution, I was part of it. Before I went to Kabul,
Uh-huh.
I was part of the Green Revolution, working with Borlaug and other plant
Oh,
breeders
really?
and providing them with the material related to the soils in technology for Green Revolution. But I had to, it was almost 90% there when I left.
Mm,
I left in 67. Revolution took place in 64 to 66.
right. So, Ravi, you have to talk about the granddaughter.
So yeah. So no, I think we still need to follow up on Slesha.
Yeah,
Right.
So in 73,
yeah,
you came to US
right.
at the World Bank,
Yeah.
and
Actually 74,
your
70,
children.
74. Yeah.
Okay,
So my daughter,
and
yeah,
your children. Yeah, go ahead. Go
yeah,
ahead,
my
please.
daughter has just finished her BSc from Bombay
Mhm,
University, senior
mhm,
chemistry,
mhm,
and she was applying for admission in USA. But at that
mhm,
time, as soon as I got admission, she had, she came here with me and she applied for admission in GW and she got admission for her biochemistry master's and PhD program.
Mm,
And my son got admission engineering college GW also because he was with Pilani and Pilani and IIT
mhm,
MIT had a program, so his credits were transferred and he could get his engineering degree in 2 years from GW, and
mhm,
daughter got her
mhm,
PhD from GW in biochemistry. Then he worked for 1 year in NIH, then applied for MD. She got her MD. After MD, she worked for NIH again and did her MPH. So I used to tell her that only degree left now is law. And when are you going to get married? She says, when time comes, I'll get married. But like my father, I never interfered with their personal life. I left the choice to them. And she got married at the age of 40. By coincidence, again, she met a very, very noble person, and they are very happily married.
So she did her degree in ophthalmology, right?
No, she had a degree. She had admission in ophthalmology,
Oh, okay.
but she did not continue
Okay.
because she wanted to get married. It was getting late because after MD and after she has to spend 6 more years.
Right.
So she decided to quit that and start family practice
Okay.
and get thinking of getting married. But by the time she was already 40.
I heard that she was involved with Chinmaya Mission. How did that come about?
No, she was involved in Chinmaya Mission even when she was in the college.
Oh, really?
And she had great devotion for, she went every time she got opportunity to go to Chinmaya Mission, she will accompany Swami Chinmayananda himself to her camps. Whenever she got a break in vacation, when she was in college, she used to go there. And she even today, she established a center in Minneapolis. She has been the director of the center of Chinmaya Mission for 10 years in Minneapolis.
Oh,
So did she
wonderful.
listen to Krishnamurti when she was at Sophia College, or how did that come about?
Sophia College was just a chance because she wanted to go for chemistry degree. And she met one professor who influenced her to apply to Sophia College.
Okay.
Because she was in Bombay staying with my friend when she was studying in Bombay after finishing her high school. So that was, she had an interest in chemistry and she found a good professor and she came out with degree honors in chemistry in Bombay University.
Very nice.
So the last generation is your granddaughter. So tell us about her.
Before we go to that, I want to mention about the generation of my wife and generation of my daughter. My wife's generation was different than from my mother because in that generation, my sister, my wife, they all got higher education. My mother never went to school, never went to any art or craft, but both my sisters went to school, went to college. My wife went, that generation in middle class, the top priority was education. And both of them got master's degree. My wife had double degree, master's in music, master's in economics.
Wow.
My sister had a degree in master's in geography. And that generation actually broke the ice of staying at home and taking care of children. And that I think was a landmark for the middle class family woman in India. I don't think it has changed so much in India. Today also in rural areas, it is not the case. But
Yes.
getting education and degree and taking care of the family in a very technical educational way was a different perspective than bringing up the children as it is. So they never went out for a job. Although they had a degree, They never pursued a job, or they never worked outside and ignored the family. They took care of my parent, they took care of the children, and that, according to me, was an extremely important landmark in women's life. And they also had a choice to select their husband. There was no pressure on them. Unlike my mother, unlike my mother-in-law, they were all forced to marry. They had no choice. But my wife, my sister, my everybody in that generation had complete freedom to choose their husband and complete freedom to go to school as long as they want to go. And I think that was a big step forward.
Was it all over India, or it was just
Well,
peculiar
as I
about it?
said, it was in the middle class,
Okay.
educated families. Even in India
Yes.
today, there are bride marriages.
Yes.
In Rajasthan, I saw a video. 3 million girls are being married below the age of 10, even today. So, in villages and in illiterate societies, that it is still the fashion, a practice. But what I wanted to bring out that in my family, and we are not that rich, we're middle class family, but our emphasis was on education. And because both our
Yes.
earlier generation didn't have opportunity to go to school or to read and write. So that was a very big step forward.
Yes. So one can see how from your wife Sumantai to
Yeah,
Aslesha, who could
yeah,
have a full-blown career and
right,
family and
right,
take care
right.
of both in a remarkable
Correct,
manner.
correct, 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 correct.
So your granddaughter, can you tell
Yeah.
us about her?
Well, she is a very brilliant child. She was born in 92. And when she was born, I was in the seventh heaven because I was taking a flight from Washington to Minneapolis. As soon as my daughter was admitted, they called me that she is about to deliver a baby. So I said, okay, I'm coming. So I took the first flight, me and my wife, and we were in the heaven when she was delivered. Now she has completely independent mind. She has no inhibition. She has chosen her own career. She is working. She is living by herself at the age of 2021. I mean, her parents are in Minneapolis, but she has a rented apartment. She's living with her friends, and she's a, she has developed art of writing poetry and composing and singing them. She has learned piano, guitar, and violin, cello, and she gives stage performances for charity. And I
Wow.
mean, it's amazing. I mean, that's a completely different. She never thinks of marrying or settling down or having children. She's just busy in her own and she's enjoying it. You see her pictures, she always a smile on her face and enjoying everything that she is doing. And yet, very obedient to her parents, she never disobeys them. And her parents have given her complete freedom to do whatever she wants. So, this generation is the top of the pinnacle of the woman's freedom. But there again is because it is in USA. I don't know if that is happening to her
Mm,
generation in India, to what extent.
mm,
And that's where some
mm,
of my observations are kind of mixed. Of 5 generations when I
mhm,
talk, the
mhm,
fourth and fifth generation, even my wife's generation, part of their time is in USA. So situation in USA is
mhm,
much different than the situation in India. And I still know that there is lot of liberation, lot of movement, lot of liberty, but it is still restricted to middle class and educated class. And I think in villages and where 60% population lives, there is still inhibitions and still restrictions on women's freedom.
Can you talk something
Now,
about Mrudul? Sorry.
Oh, Mrudul's is MBA from Wharton. That's another example of girls getting education in middle class. She had a MA degree in economics from Pune University and MBA from Wharton. So she is highly qualified. So that generation was really focused on getting higher education.
now your granddaughter,
Yeah,
uh, she was, of course, born and brought up in US.
yeah.
What is her level of attachment and understanding of her heritage, family heritage, cultural heritage in India? Had she maintained any,
That's a very good question.
or
Very good question. Very good question. Number one, her mother being very spiritual and Chinmaya Mission member, she
Mhm,
put her in a school, Chinmaya Mission School for Children, what they call Balvihar.
mhm, mhm.
And that
Yes.
imparted her the value of our culture. And she carries all those values with her wherever she goes. She is extremely interested in family history. She is the one who has
Mhm,
interviewed me like you did. And she made me to write all
mhm,
my earlier life stories. And even today,
mhm,
in between, I send her my stories of interaction with different people, and she enjoys it immensely. She has a completely different perspective. Although she is brought up in USA, she has her heart and soul in Indian culture, Indian values, and kind of balance between the
mhm,
two. But she is not carried away
mhm,
by the
mhm,
Western values. And the credit goes to her mother for that.
mhm,
Her father is Arya
mhm,
Samaji. They don't believe
mhm,
into worship and idol worship and all that. And but her mother was very, very serious Vedantic student, not blind student. So she has imparted indirectly all her values uh, because all the children who graduate from the Balvihar of Chinmaya Mission have come up with a great career because of the value they carry on their mind.
mhm, mhm.
So she has got best of both worlds. She grew up in USA, she has all the freedom and she has all the values inherited from her Indian culture.
That is, go ahead, Rajni.
Yeah. What are her impressions about India when she goes home?
Well, she is attached to people in India. She talks to all her nephews, nieces on Zoom and on Skype and all. She is very much attached to India. But now traveling to India, and she used to go every year. She used to spend time with all our relatives. She will invite them at one place and meet them. But now, after 2012, I haven't gone to India. And she also has not traveled much because of her job and family commitments. It's not easy to get vacation for more than 2 weeks. And to go to India for less than 1 week is not very meaningful. But she has
Yeah,
ties with
yeah,
India and she is in touch
yes.
with them and she has many
Mhm.
connection with all the mission members, Chinmay mission members in India.
Wonderful, wonderful. So, Rajni, should
Huh?
we, do you have any more questions or should we wrap up?
we can wrap up if Prabhu Bhaiya has any parting thoughts.
Well, my thought is that women in India in general have come up maybe 20, 30, 40% of what were there in 1900. And there are long, long ways to go. Especially there is need for higher education for girls and giving freedom to girls to choose their career in, and educate them, give them the opportunity to go to different hobbies and develop their own mind, own career. Even today, there is not much freedom to women in India. I think 70-80% of the women are still under the thumb of man and male dominated society.
Yeah, this is it has been literally a breathtaking journey,
Yeah.
spanning definitely over a century, and starting from your grandmother and to your granddaughter.
Yeah.
It is really amazing, and you made it come alive,
Thank
which
you.
is really the core theme.
Credit goes to you for asking searching question in a very systematic manner and getting the answer that you would like to put in. So credit goes to both of you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Rajni, you have final words?
Again, Prabhu Bhaiya, without you, we couldn't have been able to do this. And many, many thanks. आणि तुमचे आशीर्वाद पाहिजेत आम्हाला.
माझे आशीर्वाद
Yes.
all 24/7, 365 days.
Thank you.
For good people like you, God is taking care of you and I am with you. I am sorry I cannot be of any help to anybody. I am so, I don't want to use the word crippled, but I am so mobility impaired that I cannot do anything except going from within my house. I just managed to walk. But again, I don't complain. I had very fruitful life and I am there for anybody who needs any guidance or any help.
Sir, your life and your presence is
Thank,
enough,
thank,
more than enough of a contribution to all of us and to the society.
thank you so
So,
much. God
You're
bless
our
you.
namaste
guiding light.
and God bless you.
Bye.
Yes, sir. Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Namaskar.
We talk.
Namaskar.
Namaskar.